Early morning dew still dripped off the tropical plants outside our tents, and the birds sang loudly, although the sun was not yet all the way up. I looked out across the ocean and noticed the silhouetted figures of people dotting the shoreline, bending down and standing up, their hands full of empty nets and spears, buckets and bags just waiting to be filled. The tide was out today, and this meant perfect conditions for gathering food for their families. The massive waves crashed on the coral barrier just beyond the edge of the tide pools, and I couldn't resist the urge to join the growing group of villagers who were wandering throughout the exposed reef. I grabbed my camera and flip-flops and snuck out before anyone could see me. As if the little creatures on the reef knew their own vulnerability, they dashed beneath the rocks and scampered under seaweed, trying to hide from hands that were darting down and grabbing them, putting them into their shirts and buckets. It wasn't long of walking across the reef that I ran into some of the village kids that we had met earlier. I asked them what they were picking up. Sammy was collecting fish for breakfast, and Derek was picking up sea urchins. When I asked what he would do with the prickly sea creature, he responded with a grin, "Eat them." Pretty soon I was joined by a couple of my own kids who must have noticed I'd been gone, and they too were caught up in the delight of exploring the pools. Together we turned over rocks, chasing crabs, prying out clams, spearing fish, and uncovering all kinds of ocean edibles. It all took patience and a bit of hard work, but no one was ever in a hurry. I almost felt like we were trespassers on this early morning ritual, but I couldn't bear to pull myself away. The absolute abundance of the food that could be collected was incredible, and the knowledge and skill of even the youngest collector was impressive. The minutes soon turned into hours, and all thoughts of babies and breakfast had fled our minds as we joined our companions in filling their buckets. At one time I asked Sammy how many things they were supposed to collect, and he responded, "Every single one." There is something raw and real about knowing that your food is hiding in pools beneath your feet and on trees above your head, and if you want to eat, all you have to do is pick it up. You eat bananas when bananas are ripe, and mangoes when mangoes are ripe, and when the tide is low, you eat crab and clams and fish and sea urchins. A few times during our morning fun, we ran into mothers of the children we were with. They gave us looks of happy satisfaction as we emptied our hands into their bags and buckets, filling them up. Before long, Derek asked us if we'd like to eat all the things we'd been gathering. I knew we shouldn't pass up this opportunity, and so the group of us headed back to camp to make a fire. When I first presented the results of our morning's labor to some of the kids, they were afraid and thought perhaps it was a mistake to bring home such a meal. But the eager faces and proud smiles of our village friends soon won over the family, and before long a small fire was crackling merrily beneath the outdoor grill. Chatter from children quickly filled the air as we waited for the fire to be just the right size for cooking our breakfast. Curious fellow campers passed our gathering, and we couldn't resist inviting them to join us for a meal. After all, it's not every day you get to eat creatures cooked on a campfire. After the campfire had burned down and the coals were hot, the sea urchins were placed carefully into the fire. Again, we waited patiently while the fire cooked the urchins. Waiting. Waiting is something that islanders do so well. They never seem to be rushed because they believe there's time for everyone and everything. Time seems to be a fluid idea that gets consulted once in a while, but not too often. That's where island time comes in. We enjoyed each other's company until it was time to bring out our delicacies. I called out towards the beach, inviting everyone to come for lunch.
Time to come for lunch!
We thought it was going to be breakfast, but the whole cooking process had taken us right into the afternoon. Derek gingerly extracted the hot urchins from the fire, and using Sammy's knife, cracked them open one by one. I'm not sure what I was expecting to be inside, but I certainly wasn't impressed with the salty guts that spilt out. Apparently, the edible part of a sea urchin is actually the tiny bits of meat lining the sides of the shell. No wonder they had to collect so many. It would take 30 urchins just to fill up one belly. Everyone took turns pinching out bits of meat and making faces of delight or disgust amongst laughing spectators. Turns out there were a lot more faces of disgust than delight. We finished up 3 sea urchins and sent about 25 more to the village. We didn't end up needing as many as we thought we would. The day was just halfway over, and although our bellies weren't full, our hearts were. Collecting your food from the abundance of the earth and sharing it with friends and strangers that have become friends has this remarkable way of satisfying the soul.